Well, hey there, YouTube. You caught me in the kitchen with the ridiculously silly, incredible spring thing. So this is right now it's a temporary build that's going to get built into a chassis, which is going to have probably a couple of battery packs. Right now it runs on a few power supplies. There's this one here, this one's 24 volts, 6 amps, and then this one is 12 volt, 4 amp. And then we have this 8.4 volt pack that's powering some motors. So we start off, it's a single spring reverb unit that came out of an automotive spring reverb unit. This goes way back to before they had FM, when they only had AM. You would buy one of these accessories and you could then have a front speaker and a rear speaker in your car, and it would have this spring reverb sound. So there's nothing connected to the input of it, but I do have this vibration speaker, which eventually this is going to be put into a feedback loop to make the whole thing sing. But I might have to put this on an output of one of the amps, or it might work just on the input of this. I haven't tested this yet. But this is a vibration speaker that I'm going to play with to make it sing on its own accord. So it's this spring reverb unit here. It comes out, there's 2 transducers on it. And these are some motors that we'll talk about later. But it comes out and it goes through this preamp. It's a AD828. It's a 2-channel stereo mic preamp. And this is kind of a weak signal. So it comes out of here, runs through this mic preamp, and then into the input of this triple spring tank. And then the output of that goes through the other side of this, and the output of the fully boosted signal goes into these. Now these are echo circuits. So each one is a PT2399. That's the name of the chip. And each one has a mix knob between the straight and delayed signal, but then I've modified it for delay time control and a feedback control. Now the way that these are wired is the first one is mono, and it sends the signal to a pair of them, which split off to feed these amplifiers in their right and left channels. So the first echo hits, and then the second 2 echoes bounce ping pong between the stereo speakers, which for testing I've got this one. Then there's this other amp, and we're running this car alarm horn, and then over there is a subwoofer. Now eventually all of that stuff is going to get crammed into one box, so it's going to have to be a challenge to fit it all in there. And then there is a modification on the first to throw this first echo into positive feedback, which is self-oscillation. So you think of the echo, it goes ka-deer, 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 ka-deer. This, when you hit this button, it gets louder, so it goes ka-deer, 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 and it feeds back on itself. And you can adjust that with this pot. Now it is popping a little bit when I engage this, so I got to play around with some capacitors. Maybe I can quiet that up. But the main idea with this was to use a solenoid. This battery pack, when you hit, got a few switches. There we go. You can see this is making contact with the spring. So if we had the amplifier on, that would make quite a racket right now. And then I thought, well, why not put some DC motors and get that kind of real neat. So I've been going to Goodwill and getting motors out of toys, little fans or little electric cars that I pick up for 99 cents. And one of those electric cars had a supercapacitor in it, which is here. And it was a little tiny remote control car that you would charge the supercapacitor up, and then it would you'd be able to drive the car around for a minute or 2 before it drained the cap. Well, I've got that motor is here. I've made a little L bracket, and it's right next to this transducer. And we've got this R motor, this other larger motor here. Both of these motors run off the supercapacitor, And then, so I've got, and depending on how you move them, like if you put it, if like this one here is much louder and clearer than if you're going through this, because when it goes through this, it goes through this spring reverb here, where this is on the output, so it's picking up. It has a little bit of a reverb sound to it naturally, because some of the sound is throwing back and coming back. But this is a much more louder and crisper sound, and these are more distant sounding, the motors over here, and I have 3. So I'm going to connect a PWM, a pulse width modulation circuit, which will be another knob that you'll be able to adjust the amount of power that goes to all of the motors. And then the idea with the supercapacitor is there's a switch to recharge it here. So when these the motors that are on the supercapacitor, now I'll charge it. So you could run it out and have them have them do that when you're turning it on, and then maybe throw some charge on it and get them to jump up a little bit. It was just I had the supercapacitor. I'm going to try to add it in and maybe get some more noises out of it. So we have 3 motors over here, and then a 4th motor here, and then the 5th motor is it's got a counterbalance, or a half moon weight. This is a vibration motor from a cell phone. So I don't know if you can see that. See it spinning. But there's resistors on the switch, and when you have it on, this motor it's on the spring chassis, so it almost sounds like a male choir. It's like, oh, it like sings. And I got a resistor that drops it down a 5th, so it's like, oh, oh. And then these other motors are in an octave, almost right on it. I mean, they're a little sharp, but once I cut that PWM, I'll be able to hit a high note with these, and they're all in the same key. And that's just random. So I have another solenoid coming to so you'll be able to hit this spring like this one, and then I have 5 more of these vibration motors coming, so maybe I can try putting those motors in different locations, because wherever you move the motor, it sounds a little different. So I've got this group of switches here, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Right now there's 6 of these push button switches for the motors, and like some of these do 2 things. They'll go one way and snap back, and then the other way and snap back. They're momentary contact toggle switches, which I ordered off of AliExpress, and I misordered them. I thought they were regular, where you hit the toggle switch and it stays. I didn't know they were momentary, where they pop back. So I was like, oh man, they called them something funny. It was like self-resetting or something, and I ordered 15 for my stock, because I keep toggle switches, and I was running out. And I ordered those, and they came in, and I was like, oh, I ordered the wrong ones. So I'm when this is finished, there's going to be more to it. But since I had it, it's starting to kind of get cluttered. I figured I'd show this contraption off and upload the video. But it does sound really cool as it is now. I think when I get the feedback element going on it to make it more sensitive, and I may have to put a filter on that, like if it squeals, if the feedback is really high, even if I can make it feedback, I might not be able to. I mean, I've got more little amp boards and preamp boards here to goose this if I need to. But all of this, including the speakers and the horn, is going to be mounted in a steel. It's almost like a safe box that I bought at Goodwill for, I think it was $3.99. And that has a lock. It didn't have the key, which I was able to remove it, and I ordered a replacement lock for like $3. So hopefully I can get all that to work. But it's all going in the box, and even if that latch doesn't work, I'll probably like put a strip in there right in the crack of the door and run some fasteners into it. So I'll get it to latch. But I am going to have the feedback loop on it, and using this vibration speaker, you know, it's going to take a little bit more experimentation, and that might not even really happen until I get it in the metal chassis, you know. So I don't know. I do know I would like it to feedback. And there's something called MS-20. It's a Korg circuit, I think, and it's a filter. You think of it almost like a wah-wah circuit, but it's a little more powerful and it has more controls. It has a resonance knob. So I built those before. They're not that hard to build. So I can build a filter. It's just that with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and then 13 with the PWM. We got 13 already, plus what was the 6? 18. So yeah, I mean, I've built stuff like this before where it's basically the chassis is covered in knobs and switches. And the difficulty with that is you really need to label them. Because if you don't label everything, then it becomes, you build it and then 6 months down the line, maybe somebody will come over and I'll be like, oh, hey, do you want to see this crazy thing I built? And then you don't have any idea what any of the buttons do. So that's the ridiculously silly, incredible spring thing. Breadboard layout. See how I didn't say prototype? Oh, I'm honest. And no, it's not a synth. It's not. I wouldn't even call this a contraption, although it's borderline carapticus, wouldn't you say? All right, you guys, take care of yourselves. Try to stay warm, hug your pets, and peace.